so excited to bring you the first episode of SHEtv. Now, if you don't know, I started She this year as the ultimate networking and social club for the working woman. I found it was so important for all of us women who are working a 9 to 5, or maybe you're working from home, or you're working part-time, or you're working multiple jobs. We all have so much experience that we can offer to one another to help each other to grow, not only in our careers, but in our social lives. So She has monthly meetups, but I wanted to bring the monthly in-person meetups to an online space, which is where the idea for SHEtv came. So in this first interview, I am talking with a very dear friend of mine from college, Caroline Snow. Now, recently, Caroline, all at the same time, planned a wedding, got married, moved to a different state, got a new job as a speech pathologist, is blogging, is a yoga instructor, and is a life coach. So she is doing it all and doing it very well. And in our interview, we talked about managing anxiety, how to manage a relationship with a side passion and building a business, and how to manage a full-time business and a side job. So make sure you guys check it out. Let me know what you think, and I'm really excited to share this first video with you. Caroline.
Hello.
Welcome.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Welcome to the first episode of SHEtv. And I am pumped to be doing this with you because we go back, Facebook told us, 11 years, right?
I know, that was so sweet, that little friendiversary video. Oh my gosh.
I know. So I can't believe it's been 11 years, but for our viewers out there who don't know you, who don't know what you're about, what you're doing, why don't you give us just a little background about you?
Okay, so I'm Caroline Snow. I'm from Long Island, but I am now living in Durham, North Carolina. So I'm a speech pathologist by my degree. I went to Loyola, which is where Alex and I met, and I did the whole regular path. You know, I went to college. I picked the major that felt right. I graduated, got the master's, got the job. Started to feel like I needed a little something more in my life. Like it was just getting, the day-to-day grind was getting to me. It was like, get up, go to work, come home, go to bed, on repeat all the time. And it was just like kind of starting to take a little bit of a toll on my soul. And I was experiencing a lot of anxiety. I've had anxiety since I was a child. And there have been times in my life where it's kind of ebbed and flowed and gotten better and worse. And right after grad school, my first job, I was not in a job that I liked. I had a really long commute and my anxiety was so bad. And I just felt like there's got to be more to my life. Like, what am I going to do this until I retire? Like, I just couldn't fathom that. So I was on an anti-anxiety medication during that time. And after a few years, I wanted to get off of it. So I started to learn a little bit about different ways to help heal myself from anxiety naturally, because after I went off the medication, it was kind of hard to readjust. And there were definitely times where I was like, oh, screw it. I'm going to go back on it and just be on it forever because I hate feeling miserable.
Now, were there times when you were trying to get off of the medication that you, like, I don't want to say like fell off the wagon because you're going back to take it, but were there times when you were like, you had to go back to the medication when you were trying to wean yourself off?
There weren't times where I had to go back to it. It's really hard to wean yourself off. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to go back. It took me weeks and weeks because you have to come down very slowly. And so when I finally got off of it, I was really committed to staying off of it. So there were times where I was like, oh, it would be so much easier to go back onto it. But I was really committed to learning a new way of living. So I got really into wellness and nutrition and learning about eating right for my body. And then on January 1st, it was New Year's Day, January 1st, 2014, I found a few women who would end up being my teachers, Gabby Bernstein, Chris Carr, and Marie Forleo. And I've ended up doing trainings with all three of those women, but basically they were like my trifecta for inspiring me to start living in a different way. Like I finally started to see like, oh wow, I can do more than just this job. So I started a blog. Took me a long time to get up the courage to start it too. So it was like by that September, I started a blog and it was just all about the things that I was learning. So I was by no means an expert at that point. I mean, I'm still not, we're all on this journey, but I started sharing little recipes and just tips and things that I was learning. And that's kind of how it all started.
So what would you tell, because I feel like a lot of the members of She are kind of in the same boat, and I've definitely felt the same way, of that daily grind. Like, I wake up, I make breakfast, I get in the car, I sit in traffic, I go to work, I sit in meetings, I answer emails, I sit in traffic, I go home, and it's inevitable, right? Especially if you have a commute.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you find, or how did you know where to go to kind of find that inspiration to look for something else? Because I feel like a lot of women are in the same spot, right? They know there's something else out there besides the commute and besides the job. And I think maybe like sometimes we feel bad, like, I spent all this money on an education, I should be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to the other ladies of She on taking that first step and figuring out, or trying to figure out, like, what's out there, what more can I be doing, with my life?
Yeah, I know. And it's so hard because when I was in that first job, I remember saying, like, I have no hobbies. When I was in college and high school, I had hobbies. I did theater and dance and horseback riding and whatever. And then, like, when you're an adult, it's easy to just not have any hobbies or things that you love to do. And so I think that's the most important thing, is to start with something that you're interested in, like either something you're curious about, which for me was health and wellness. So I started with just learning. I was reading, I was doing online courses, I got into some Facebook groups, Beachbody, that was a big thing for me. So I was like just being led by my own curiosity and my interest for wanting to know more. It was really like a thirst, but I would say that people should start with something they're either curious about or really passionate about otherwise. So some people out there watching might be really into fashion or really creative and really good at painting or drawing. And maybe that's not their career, and maybe it doesn't have to be. Sometimes I think that making, it puts too much pressure on our passions when we try to turn it into a career.
Right.
So it's okay to have your real job, the one that's like, all right, it's a good job. I went to school for it. I got my degree. It makes good money. It's okay to have the passions outside of that, because it takes some pressure off having your passion, be your main source of income.
Said that. And sorry to interrupt you, but I love that you said that, because I need to write that down and like frame it on my wall. It's okay to have a job and it's okay to have a passion. And I think sometimes we feel so forced to choose that I either have to be this full-time, like hard-ass career woman with no hobbies, no interests, and I live for work and my family, or I learned how to quit my job and now I work from home and I'm my own boss and I'm just this entrepreneur, and it's like, where is the middle ground? Because there's so many women living in this intermediate space.
Yeah. And it's okay. And I think that, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, I struggled with this because for a long time, my goal was to leave my career so that I could blog and coach and teach yoga full time. Like I wanted to do the laptop lifestyle. Like, I'm going to go to Bali this weekend. Oh, I just got back from yoga class and here's my smoothie bowl. Life's great. But there's like almost too much pressure out there, especially for women on social media, that like leave the 9 to 5 and you'll finally be happy. I don't think it necessarily has to be that way. I mean, if that works for you, that's great, but it doesn't have to be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree.
Too much pressure.
So speaking of pressure and laptop lifestyle and wanting to go to Bali and all that stuff, right? So how do you manage because you still work full time. I still work full time, right? How do you manage a full-time job and then also making room for like a side hustle and having a hobby and having a passion? How do you make sure that you have time for both of those things? Because they're important to you.
Yeah. Well, when your side hustle is your passion, you make time for it because it's almost like you can't imagine yourself not doing it. Like I would come home from work and have all these ideas, like, especially when you have a long car ride, I would come up with all these ideas for like a blog or for a freebie or for like a coaching program. And I would come home and I'd be like, like I got to sit down and get it out. So I think being really passionate and interested in what you're doing really helps. Like if art is just therapy for you and you just want to come home and paint, you're going to make time for that because it feeds your soul. So anytime you have a side hustle, it shouldn't be like, I don't even like the term side hustle. Can we just stop using that right now? Because the hustle part of it,
side hustle is gone.
the hustle part of it makes it sound like, oh, like I'm running up a hill and it sucks, you know? But your side passions can bring you income. But I think starting with what makes you really interested is the best way to balance both, because you're going to make time for something that you really, really love. Also, I feel like I'm kind of a fraud for saying this, because for a long time, and, you know, still, like, I feel like I'm better at it now, but balancing it is not easy. Women are always like, how do you find the balance? Like there's an answer to a math equation. Like it's constant effort.
Wine plus 1 bar of chocolate plus 1 Pilates class.
Yeah, I think it's just like a constant trying to balance it. There's no like, yep, I've balanced it. We're done here. That was something that I had a hard time with, but I was working a lot, and I think my commute had a lot to do with my burnout, but I was like overworking, over commuting, and then pushing myself too much. And I recently had like a big life transition. So I got married and moved at the same time. So thank you. So right now I'm still kind of in that transition because I've only been in North Carolina for about 2 months. So I started working part-time. It's going to be going to full-time, but it was actually really nice to just start part-time because it gave me time to kind of decompress and adjust a little bit. And if people have the opportunity, if they start bringing in some income with whatever their side passions are, if they have the opportunity to scale back on their hours, I would say that that's a good way to go, because I feel so much better right now that I'm not working, 50, 40 hours a week. If that's an option, I think it's a good thing to try.
Yeah. So speaking of side passions, you mentioned your blog, and I know you are still blogging, but I know what else you do, but tell our viewers, what are the other things that you've got going on in your life?
Yeah, so it kind of progressed on its own, but it started with the blog. And then I started teaching yoga, because with the whole anxiety piece, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to deepen my practice. And I've always had kind of like a leader teacher mentality. Even in my job as a speech pathologist, I love getting up and teaching people and instructing. And so it was really like easy to transition that into yoga instructor. It just felt like a very easy part of me. Like I really took to it. So I started that. And then I started doing Beachbody coaching with you. And from that, I actually, originally I wanted to start doing private coaching, like life coaching. But I didn't really know what I wanted that to be. But so these things kind of started organically. And then I had someone contact me before I started private coaching, asked me if I would work with them, which was very lucky. I think that was the universe's way of being like, here you go, it's time. You need to start doing this. So then I started doing some private one-on-one coaching, which is just like, I'll do like 3 months with someone and we'll do like a weekly call or something, and whatever they're working on, but it's usually focused on eliminating those limiting beliefs so that they can achieve, whether it's, we started with Beachbody, and so it was like more weight loss and fitness, but I don't really do that as much anymore. But it's really centered around getting those limiting beliefs cleared up so that they can either develop new habits, feel more comfortable with their work-life balance, or...
What's an example? Because I feel like, too, if you're in the kind of social media space or the industry of health and wellness and you're like online all the time, there are terms that are thrown around and they tend to not mean anything anymore. Like it's just something you say, like side hustle, right? So for maybe our viewers who don't know, or maybe they do know and they don't know this is the name, but can you give an example of like a self-limiting belief? Because if you're in it, you know what it is, right? And it's been like thrown at you so many times. But for maybe those of us who are not familiar, or maybe we have them and we don't know what they're called.
We all have them.
What's an example of a self-limiting belief?
So a lot of women are really hard on themselves, like way too hard on themselves. Me personally, like I can totally attest to that. But we all have experiences, especially in our childhood, that teach us beliefs about ourselves, whether it's that, you know, maybe we failed a math class and then we just decided that, you know, we're not very smart. Or maybe we never had a boyfriend and we decided that we were not lovable. Mm-hmm. Or if we had a difficult situation at home with finances, maybe your parents were really struggling financially and you decided that money is hard to come by. These are all beliefs that we create early on in life that we believe to be true about ourselves. And it really shapes the way we live in the world and how we show up and what we can achieve. And so the limiting beliefs are all around, like the biggest ones are money limiting beliefs, like I can only earn this amount and no more. Right. Or earning money has to be challenging, like it can't be easy. Mm-hmm. Or I don't deserve to have that job because I'm a fraud and I'm an idiot.
That has been one of mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, I had that one too, coming out of grad school. I'm like, wait, you're going to give me a job? Like, wait, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a kid when you're like 24 and you're just like, no, I can't do this. So these are all these kind of limiting beliefs, and it puts a cap on what we can really achieve.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember a while back, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, before I have the job now, I applied for within the same hospital system, but a different division. Mm-hmm. And like every day up until the interview, I kept telling myself how hard the interview was going to be, how I wasn't smart enough for the position, how I didn't have the experience, literally all these negative things about a job that I wanted. And
one that you were probably qualified for.
One that I was qualified before, but I'm sure all of those negative thoughts seeped into my interview because I didn't get the job. Mm-hmm. And I was distraught. Like, it was like I had a dog and the dog ran away. Like, I was crying. And then when I looked back, I was like, Alexandria, you didn't even think you deserved that job. You didn't even tell yourself you deserve that job, you know? So I totally agree with you. It's so important to identify the limiting beliefs that you're telling yourself, because girl, they're not true.
Yeah. We all have so many of them, whether it's achievement in our career, whether it's happiness in our love lives, whether it's, you know, a limiting belief that I always tell myself is I have anxiety. Right. Which on one hand is true. And on the other hand, it stops me from becoming the person who can say, I don't have anxiety anymore.
Right.
You know?
I love that.
So I noticed that in me too.
Yeah. So you have done a lot. You're still doing a lot. Have you ever wanted to quit, like any of these things that you're doing?
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. So, like constantly. What?
This is kind of like a twofold. So have you wanted to quit? And if you didn't quit, what stopped you? And then was there a time that you actually were like, I'm done. Like, this is not for me. And I'm actually going to quit, because quitting is scary. Yeah. And it's a learning, I think, curve to know when to hold on to something and when you actually need to walk away. So I want to hear about you quitting.
Yeah. I don't believe that you should never ever quit anything, because sometimes there's things that are just not serving you and they're just draining your energy. And no matter how much you really wanted it to work out, it's not happening anymore. So there are times where you really do have to let go. And then there's other times where it might seem like, oh, this is so hard. But I think what really it comes down to is like, can you imagine yourself not doing this? So for example, with coaching, with my private coaching and with Beachbody. So I felt like an absolute failure when I gave up Beachbody, because I started with the intention of, I'm going to go all the way and I'm going to make 6 figures and I'm going to leave my job and do it.
I think we had that conversation.
And I still loved the experience. Like I wouldn't go back and not do it. I still loved it. And it was such an amazing growing experience and learning experience. Yeah. But at a certain point, I wasn't in love with it anymore. And maybe it had served me up into a point, but I wasn't serving it anymore. And it was really hard to let go of it because I felt like I absolutely failed myself. But when I took it off my plate, I really opened up a lot of room mentally and energetically to pursue other things, pursue the things that were interesting to me at the time. Now, on the flip side, with my private coaching, I wanted to give up a lot of times. Last couple months ago, I hired a coach to help me increase my coaching, like a business coach. And it was like 3 months before my wedding and my move. I don't know what I was thinking. Like I apparently didn't have enough on my plate and I was just like trying to do more. But I started getting daily migraines from all the stress from everything that I was trying to do, plus the wedding and the move. Oh my God. So I had to totally put my coaching on hold, like stopping all of it. I stopped working with my coach. I stopped coaching people. I stopped promoting my coaching services. And for a few months, I was like, am I ever going to go back to it? And I was really uncertain there for a while. And, as luck would have it, the very first client who contacted me in the beginning came to me a few weeks ago and was like, hey, I want to start up coaching again with you. And I was like, all right, then I guess we're still doing this. Yeah. So it's like you do get nudges from the universe. And I'm always trying to be aware of like, okay, what messages am I getting? What is my gut telling me right now? And sometimes you just got to listen and watch for those signs. But ultimately, I would say don't give up on the things that you are thinking about every single day. Like the things that you are so called to do. Like as hard as it was, I still knew how in love with the process of coaching I was and how in love with my clients I am. And that's ultimately what kept me in it.
I love that.
Let's hope I stick with it.
Well, I think along the lines of all the things we've been talking about is that you can still have this passion and grow something beautiful without putting all this pressure on yourself. I think there is good pressure in terms of setting goals and making sure you're staying on track, but you don't have to like bear the weight of the world on your shoulders to move forward with something. You can always just take those steps, little by little.
Yeah. And I think it's almost better to not, and I speak for myself, like if I had given up my job as a speech pathologist and tried to do this coaching thing full time, I'd probably hate it because I'd be so desperate each month to get the money I needed to pay my rent and all the things that I need that like it becomes more of a burden. And I did not want my passion to turn into a burden. So I can still make money at it and I'm not doing it full time, but I am in love with it.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the things that maybe were really, really hard for you in the beginning, like things that you told, a self-limiting belief, right? Mm-hmm. Something you told yourself, like, I'm never going to do this. I can't do this. And then you figured out like, hey, I'm actually a badass at this and I rock.
Being honest and being vulnerable was probably the biggest part, like sharing my voice. We live in this age of social media where so many people are on and they're sharing and everything. But when I started the blog, I honestly considered doing it anonymously. I wanted to just be like the blog and not the person behind the blog. Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to hide over here like in the Wizard of Oz and he's got the
What were you going to call it? Blog by girl?
Well, the name of the blog is Bloom and Spark, so my name didn't necessarily have to be on it. It could just be like an online magazine. Like you go to websites that aren't like about a single person. But ultimately, I felt like I connected with people better when I was sharing my story. But it was hard to tell people that I suffered from anxiety. I was like, oh, my aunt's going to read this and my dad's going to read this. And stuff like that. But so being really real, I think is so important on social media because so many people, you get their highlights and I will cop to that. Like if you look at my Instagram, I try to make it pretty. But I also want to share real. Like, I had a shitty day today, guys. And you're good about sharing all like the good and the bad, you know? And I think that's what we need a little bit more of. That's gotten easier.
Yeah, good. I love to hear that. So tell me a little bit more, because personally, it's not something that I deal with, and I do get a lot of messages about it. And I think it would be really helpful to our viewers and the other members of She who are dealing with anxiety.
Mhm.
So how does anxiety play a role in your, I don't know if it's daily, if you have it, or how does it play a role in your life today, and how are you managing it? And
Yeah.
what advice would you give to other, career women who are trying to pursue other passions but have anxiety about it, or just have daily anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like cyclical. Like it comes in like a couple of months at a time. Like, well, I'll be really good, and then I'll not be so good. I think it's really important if you have, access to a therapist, go get a therapist. If you have health insurance, or if you don't, have someone to talk to. That's been something that's been really important to me. If it's really bad and you need medication, go get medication. I'm not going to be someone who says, you can only do it naturally. Medication's the devil. Like, it was really helpful for me. So if people are not functioning well in their daily lives, look into medication. It helped me. Some things that helped me after I went off the medication was yoga and meditation. I know I probably sound like a broken record. It's really hard to get into a consistent practice, but I think, looking back over the course of the last few years, that's been a really important thing for me. And being open and honest about it, like sharing it with other people, maybe having a support group or have a few friends. Like one of my very best friends deals with anxiety. So this is the kind of thing that like I can talk to her about. And also learning to view the anxiety in a different way, like not attaching so much judgment to it. But when I have these anxious thoughts or feelings, it's kind of looking at it like, oh, all right, anxiety is coming along for the ride today. Okay, you can sit in the back seat, but you can't drive. Right? Like you can come along. I'm accepting that you're here today, but I'm still driving the car. So just kind of viewing it in a way that's a little bit more accepting and loving towards yourself, because we all have anxiety and the resistance just makes it so much worse.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You talked about meditation and yoga like a smidge. So let's go there, because your arms look amazing. And I want to know, what are you doing?
Girl, yours look amazing.
Well, tell me, what are you doing for physical wellness? So we kind of talked about mental wellness. So how do you, what's the counterpart to that? What are you doing to stay in shape and get the body
so that's also kind of changed over time. When I was doing my yoga teacher training, it was a 6-month course and it was on weekends, so it was nice and spread out. So I was doing a lot of yoga during those days, and it definitely made my arms nice and defined. And then when I got into Beachbody, I was doing all of those programs, which I have to say are probably the best out there. They're the best that I've ever done. Like, they make the most amazing transformations for your body. My husband lost like 20 pounds doing P90X, and I swear
same. Ryan lost like 15 pounds doing P90X.
Really? That's awesome. I know. I think I never looked better than when I was doing PIO.
Yeah.
It's true. And now, actually, because I moved, I wanted to meet new people and kind of get into a community. So I found a studio that's really close to my apartment, and they do cycling classes and they do circuit classes and those TRX. Those
the cables.
Yeah. But I always hated cycling. Like, I took 2 soul cycle classes in my life and I never liked them.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's an unpopular opinion. Don't hate me. It just wasn't my thing. But this place that I'm going to now has great classes. So now I'm getting really into cycling. But I think it's about finding a community, which I found in yoga. And I found that in Beachbody. And I found that in this new studio that I'm at now. So definitely having a community around your fitness makes it so much easier to be consistent.
Yeah. So what are you doing? How do you manage your nutrition? Like, are you super strict? I know you're not a vegan, but like what nutrition guidelines do you follow?
So I don't adhere to any specific diet. I think there's like 2 types of people. Someone told me this, I forget what it is, but people who can either who really benefit from the strict, like black and white, here are your lines, don't go past that. Like when you have strict rules, it makes it really clear. So some people benefit from that, but then other people like me, I want to run and rebel when I have those strict things. So like I did Whole30 a couple times and I never made it through. Like never. I just start to hate. Yeah, no, I just start to hate it when I have to restrict myself. But I'd say for the most part, I follow like the 80-20 rule. So like when I go food shopping, I try to focus on fruits and vegetables, protein that is preferably from like grass-fed or pastured or organically, you know, that kind of, you know, raised animals. And I don't do a whole lot of carbs, but I don't limit them either.
Right.
But then, you know, when we go out on weekends, I eat whatever the hell I want.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like during the week, I try to stick to more clean eating.
Yeah.
I love my wine. Like I can't give stuff up.
No, we'll never give up the wine.
Doesn't work.
So, working out, going cycling, we're doing classes, we are running a blog, we are teaching yoga, we are coaching, we are a speech therapist, we are doing all the most beautiful things. What does your husband say? What does he think? Because I know, and we've talked about this, for women who are in relationships, sometimes pursuing a passion on top of a full-time job and even trying to work out, it can kind of take a toll on your relationship if you're not feeding the relationship as well. So how does Dr. Snow handle all of your many, many facets of your life?
Well, you know, he thinks that as long as I'm happy and as long as I can financially support myself, then he doesn't care really what I do. He doesn't want me to stop working and rely on him for, you know, money or anything like that. I mean, at this point, he's still in fellowship, so I can't.
Right.
But someday, when he actually makes that doctor's salary, he doesn't want me to like stop working and just like clean the house all day. He's like, no, you should always earn an income, which I'm sure I will. But he's very supportive of the blog. He's like, you know, as long as you like doing it, keep doing it. If you don't like do it anymore, then don't do it. He's got such a simple way of looking at things, which is so nice when I tend to like overcomplicate it. But it's definitely hard when you have a job and the side stuff and the relationship. So I just try to make like really clear boundaries. And it's been a little bit easier since we moved because now currently I'm only working part-time. That's going to change soon. So we'll see how I do with this. But I've been able to have time during the day when he's gone at work to focus on the coaching and the blog. That way, when he's home, I am 100% focused on just us. You know, like we have dinner together, we watch shows at night, we go out. Those are, you know, that's really important that when he's around, because also he works such crazy hours. So when he is around, like it's really important that we're doing stuff together.
Definitely. So I was gonna, and you kind of answered this, but if there's any more that you have to say about it, are there any, like, what are the boundaries that you set so your business life and your personal life don't bleed together? But are there times when, you know, they do intersect, like you bring him into like a workout video or something like that, you know? So how do you actually set those boundaries and what are they? And then are there times when you guys kind of like do come, you know, bring him into that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually set like strict boundaries. I just kind of do what feels right. Like if he's home on the weekend and, you know, he's so busy during the week, I'm probably not going to do as much of my own work when he's around. You know, if he wants to take a nap, then maybe I'll be like, okay, while you do that, I'll go blog a little bit. But if he's up and we want to do stuff together, then we do stuff together. So he will be my priority at that point. But then, you know, my blog and the coaching will be a priority at another point. So I don't have any like strict rules or boundaries that I said. It's just kind of like, well, what's best to do right now? Like, what's today going to be about? Are we going to hang out today or is today going to be more like I'm working? And I love to bring him into stuff, but he's not really like super into it. I did a couple of videos of like us working out together, and I always got so many more likes on the ones that he was in. I was like, people love you.
Love to see the significant other like also.
I know. I don't do like the workout videos anymore, but I definitely need to bring him in a little bit more. But I know I can't figure out a way to do it because this is just not his realm. I mean, he is a doctor, but he's a surgeon, so it's very different than like health and wellness. I mean, they kind of overlap. Maybe I could see if he could write like a blog post or something one time.
Yes, like Sundays with Dr. Snow, like just a little tidbit.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to think about that. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, I would definitely be into that.
How do you do that with like? Do you have Ryan? Because I would love to hear what you do too. Like, how do you incorporate Ryan?
So I'm forever trying to like, I like would want him sitting here. Like I'm always trying to have him be a part of it because it is something that takes up a large part of my life. Like even before I did this, I was like, don't call me, don't knock on the door, like things are happening. But when I can, and you've probably seen them, I like to include him in some videos and do interviews with him. And I just like to share like what we're doing day to day, you know, or especially if we're going on date night. Or if we're struggling and like I'm really mad at him for something that's probably very stupid, but still mad at it, you know?
Yeah,
so
props to you for doing that, because I don't think too many women out there are brave enough to show like the reality of relationships. Like it's not all sunshine and roses all the time, but it doesn't mean that you're unhappy. You know, it just means like, this is the reality and this is how we're working through it. And we're going to go out on date night and put this behind us. And, you know, I think it's great that you share all that.
Thanks. It's definitely been a growing experience. Probably like 10 years ago, if I got in a fight with a boyfriend, I would have thought it was over, you know, like, or I wouldn't have even spoken my opinion, you know, and now I'm sure I'm going to tell you very opinionated. So.
Well, you are in your power.
Yes. So is there anything else that you want to share with our lovely members of She about, you know, your lifestyle, any other tips that you would like to give them?
I think that women do not talk enough about overwhelm. I think 100% of us are overwhelmed most of the time, especially if we have kids and jobs. You know, it's like, how am I going to do this other thing that I love when I have all these things going on? And I don't think that your passion should come at the expense of your peace. Ooh, can we like write that down?
Yes, I'm going to go back. That sounded so good.
Your passion shouldn't come at the expense of your peace. Like if you have just a little bit of time in the day and you are so super overwhelmed, don't go and do something else and add more to your plate.
Guilty. That's so guilty though.
Like we always feel like we need to do more. And I think that comes from, and this goes back to limiting beliefs, I think this comes from a belief that we have to do more in order to be more. And in order to be loved more, and in order to be worthy, and in order to love ourselves more. You know, a lot of times we do more because we just feel like we need to be validated for ourselves. Like, I did it. I accomplished all of this. I worked this many hours and then I did all these things, and that's what makes me an important human being. And that's so not the case. And I think this is something that I am really passionate about having other women talk about. Like, we need to change the conversation around all these things that we put on our plates in order to validate our worth. It's not worth our peace.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yay. We got to go write that down.
No, we're going to go back and like scribe it. So
good. You know, I can't come up with these things when I try, but if I just start talking, boom.
Wow, I know. So where can we connect with you? What's your blog, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube? Tell me all the things.
Yeah. So the website, the blog is called bloomandspark.com. Because the bloom kind of felt like we want to bloom into our best selves, and also very like natural foods kind of oriented. And the spark just being like your passion, what lights you up. So finding that balance, that was Bloom and Spark. That was the inspiration. So bloomandspark.com is the blog. Yeah. I am mostly on Instagram these days, caroline.snow.wellness. I am on Facebook, but I'm not on there as much. But it's just Caroline Snow. So you can find me there.
Perfect.
And I do have a YouTube, but it is a little baby YouTube channel. Like I have a couple of videos up there, and I honestly don't even remember if it's Bloom and Spark or Caroline Snow or Caroline O'Neill, which is my baby. So
Well, you let me know because I'll link everything.
yeah, link it there. This is sad. I don't even know
down
how
like
to
that.
find it.
Well, thank you. This was amazing for our
Thank you.
first interview.
And thank you so much for all the wonderful, beautiful work that you're doing with She. You inspire me so much. And I'm so excited to be along for the ride and to watch you.
Thank you. Well, before you go, I have a quick quiz.
Mm-hmm.
So first, what's your favorite personal development book that you want to share with us?
Okay, so if we look right here, I'm going to go, oh my God, I have so many. Can I give you a few?
Give me 2.
Okay, The Universe Has Your Back, Gabby Bernstein.
Okay, and give me 1 more.
I'm going to give you 2 more.
Okay.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Ooh.
And Untethered Soul.
Okay, send those to me. So also.
I will.
And then favorite podcast right now?
Oh, I'm really into the Goop podcast. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow's website. Okay. I love that. But I'm also going to say Lewis Howes School of Greatness was where I started with personal development because I listened to that on my car ride to work. So that was the foundation for me. So definitely School of Greatness.
Favorite Netflix series?
Oh, shit. Well, I'm going to go old school on this and say Gossip Girl.
Ooh, okay. Good one. Pepperoni or cheese?
Cheese.
NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Backstreet Boys.
Oh, okay. Which Spice Girl do you identify with?
I always liked Posh Spice.
Oh, I was driving home too because I was like thinking of the questions I was going to ask you, and it was for me. And today I was like really feeling posh. So it's really
these are such great questions. No, when I was like in 5th grade, I loved Posh Spice because I had her hairstyle because I had like dark brown hair with like it was like cut like this, so I could pretend to be her.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you again, Caroline. Such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you, viewers, and we'll see you next time for SHEtv.